to Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, regular closed session meeting, the East Bay Mud Board of Directors. Please call roll, Madam Secretary.
Okay, I'm going to turn on the mics. Give me one moment. Director Coleman?
Present.
Director Katz?
Present.
Director McIntosh?
Here.
Director Mellon?
Present.
Director Patterson? Stepped out of the room. Director Young?
I'm here.
President Lenny.
Here. All right, if members of the public are online and wish to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. I also have a speaker card. When prompted, please state your name, affiliation if applicable, and topic. Please refrain from providing personal information during public comment. If we need this information, we'll have you contact staff. The Secretary will call each speaker in the order received. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. However, I have the discretion to amend this time based on the number of speakers. The Secretary will track time and inform each speaker when the allotted time is concluded.
I don't see any hands on Zoom right now. You have the person in
Okay,
the boardroom.
so we have Ross Spinner.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ross Spinner. I'm a 12-year employee with East Bay Mud, instrument technician. As I went to the meeting 2 weeks ago, the HR meeting in the morning, I know some of you were there and heard me. I said I would continue to speak on a problem I had when I was a new hire employee and new hire harassment that I received at that time. Basically, when I hired on 12 years ago, it became obvious that my boss wanted to fire me almost immediately, within 2 weeks. And I don't know why. I have my own ideas. But I worked to try to work through these problems. I talked to him about it. He basically told me through a trainer who he had training me, the trainer would tell me, hey, the boss wants to fire you, and this is why. So I would talk to my boss, my supervisor, about, well, am I having some problems? Basically my trainer said that you didn't like this. Could I do something to improve it? So I basically tried to work through those problems as they came up. Then after 3 months, I got my first employee evaluation, which was required for new hires. Excuse me, I don't do this very often. So basically, he gave me a really poor evaluation, which I was sort of expecting. I've had bosses that really didn't understand me. So I very nicely, I told him I didn't think his evaluation of me was fair. I basically, okay, we had a little discussion about that. I went out to work. I actually came back because I was so upset about this evaluation. And I went home. I went home after that. So what happened following this was outrageous. My boss came down. We have a shop, it's above and below. My supervisor came down, and there was another employee there in the shop. There was 2 people who were working in that shop at that time, me and this other employee. He told the employee that he sent an email to HR saying that they need to fire me because I was mentally unstable. And that basically HR called him back and said, you can't fire him now because, what you're saying is outrageous. This is not appropriate. So he then told my coworker he needed to help him fire me, which, and I didn't learn about this until after I was through with probation. So basically, things did get better for me. But almost immediately, and I didn't know why, my coworker who I was working with, he started getting harassed. The boss would come downstairs and just sort of, for no real reason, start yelling at him about things. So this went on, and my coworker ended up taking time off. I don't know why, but at that time, pretty much like after 2 weeks, my boss started telling me how my coworker was a troubled employee and how he had issues, and he started telling me personal medical information about him, about why he wasn't coming to work. And so, I found out from my coworker, basically he's being harassed.
Mr. Spinner, your 3 minutes have concluded. If you can wrap up your comments.
Okay, well, basically, I feel this is a problem with new hire right now at the district. I don't think if you handled new hires the way we do with the at-work policy that we have, that this kind of thing wouldn't happen. Actually, we'd have better management also. So, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for coming today. Do you have other speakers?
I have one hand for public comment online. Yvette Rivera, you should be able to unmute your mic. And your 3 minutes will start now.
Thank you, Risha. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know, I am in South America, in Argentina, on my 3-week vacation. I'm actually required to do this public comment because the DIO office is disregarding my request for an extension to reply to a determination letter. Before I continue with that, I do want to talk about what Mr. Spinner just said. I feel for Mr. Spinner. He's now a member of the East Bay MUD Retaliation Academy. What he described is typical at East Bay MUD. I'll be reaching out to Mr. Spinner to make sure that his comments are part of the board minutes, because obviously the district likes to sugarcoat what people say, and they did with his comments at the last meeting. But I'll resume that conversation in the future. I'm calling today because our less than stellar DIO officer, Janella Samber Wallace, refuses to give me an extension to reply to the results of her investigation into my complaints of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation against Edwin Benecourt, Dave Carlson, Tony Montano, and David Briggs. Ms. Samber Wallace says I have until this Thursday, May 26, to reply to her determination letter. I do not return from my scheduled vacation until June the 7th. Please keep in mind that Ms. Samber Wallace is an attorney and that she, in my opinion, blatantly misrepresents my allegations in the determination letter and incompetently infers that in her communication to me that employees must fill out a form to file EEOC determination or retaliation complaints. I want to let this board know, in 2021, I provided you a 16-page U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity document called Guidance, Questions and Answers, Enforcement Guidance for Retaliation and Related Issues. Today I emailed, or last night I emailed, a 100+ page document from the EEOC called, it's the complete document. It's the Guidance Enforcement for Retaliation and Related Issues. It's not rocket science. And for the sake of employees being currently discriminated against, harassed, and retaliated against, please, the Board of Directors, Janella Samber Wallace, Derry Moten, Choka Lee Matthew, and Stephen Curry should read it before doing the bidding of Clifford Chan, General Manager, Derek McDonald, and the General Counsel and his staff, Lourdes Matthews. It's obviously too late for me, Saji Pierce, Ariel Bland, and many of us at East Bay MUD to be treated with dignity and respect after filing discrimination and retaliation complaints against this agency. But it may not be too late for others. Again, I am asking the East Bay MUD Board of Directors in this public board meeting to ensure this newly assembled DIO department and this, in my opinion, woefully incompetent DIO officers, Janelle Samber Wallace, provide me an extension to respond to the determination letter until I return from my scheduled vacation. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
There are no other hands for public comment.
All right. We will now move to convene to discuss closed session agenda items. We're scheduled to return to our regular board meeting at 1:15. Welcome everyone to our Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 regular business meeting of the East Bay MUD Board of Directors. We will receive reports from this morning's Finance Administration Committee and the Long-Term Financial Stability Key Performance Indicators Update and Mid-Cycle Budget Workshop under item 18. We will also receive reports from the May 11th Los Vaqueros JPA meeting and the May 16th DERWA meeting. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz. Present. Director McIntosh.
Here.
Director Mellon?
Present.
Director Patterson?
Present.
Director Young?
I'm here.
President Lenny.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a special presentation today.
Yes, I would like to introduce retired Colonel Phil Stage, who is a volunteer with the California Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. Colonel Stage has a short presentation and will present the Above and Beyond Award to the district.
Well, good afternoon. Board members, Mr. Chan, President Lenny. My name is Phil Stage, and I'm a volunteer with Employers Support of the Guard and Reserve, and I'm the California State Chairman, and the ESGR stands for Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, as I stated, and it is an agency of the Department of Defense. By the way, I also was a battalion commander at the old Oakland Army base at one time back in the 80s, so I'm familiar with the area. So to tell you a little bit about this program, in 1972, the Department of Defense set up this program, which is designed to create and foster good relations between the employers and service members who work for them. And the Patriot Award is many ways in which the department says, thank you. Thank you for hiring our service members, and thank you for supporting them. This Above and Beyond Award is a couple levels higher than the Patriot Award, which goes to direct supervisors, and Chief Bob Music recently gave one to his supervisor for their support. The Above and Beyond Award is one of the highest awards given by me as the chairman of California ESGR, and these are given in limited quantities for employers who have gone above and beyond legal requirements. I've only given 6, so they are significant. If I can use your acronym, EBMUD has received one of these awards previously, and the chief put you in for that as well. For this award, the initial nomination was for the national level Freedom Award, of which there are only 3 awarded: large business, small business, and public sector. You came out number 2 in the state by just a couple of points, and that's why you're getting Above and Beyond instead of some other award. So, I just want to say that the chief nominated you to recognize EBMUD for your support of members of the National Guard and Reserve components who are deployed here. Unfortunately, as I said, another company beat you out by a couple of points for the Freedom Award, and so we did want to recognize you with our next highest award. Let me give you a few examples of what EBMUD has done. Chief Music stated, when I was mobilized in support of COVID-19 response last year, EBMUD Board of Directors passed resolution number 35196-20, authorized compensation to the EBMUD employee reservist on military leave of absence. His pay and benefits remained intact and he was made financially whole. Additionally, the staff at Part E section threw a party for him when he was mobilized. The superintendent and the staff at EBMUD Part E section stayed in contact with his family while he was away and answered any questions his spouse had. They even made sure that his children were invited to the EBMUD Christmas party when he was gone. Chief Music received differential pay for the duration of his mobilization, stating, it is a real stress relief to know that I will be made whole while I serve my country. EBMUD sponsors Swords to Plowshares in the San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland. Chief Music was sent as a representative along with 10 other district employees to a fundraising dinner held on a previous Veterans Day weekend. All veteran and active duty employees at EBMUD were honored by name during the board meeting held during the Veterans Day holiday, as well as in the employees' newsletter. So I was just going to ask, who here is a veteran? Thank you very much for your service. Let me say a few words about support, because support from the employer is so critical to our military. This support transfers into readiness for our military. Invariably, there will be scheduling conflicts between what the employer wants and what the employee and, excuse me, and what we ask the employee to do. Support for the service member would be allowing them to train with his or her unit and still get work done here at East Bay MUD with your flexible scheduling, trading manpower, and so on. Sometimes support for the service member is looking in on family or family members when the service member is away serving our country abroad. A while ago, I heard a captain in the Army talk about said support, and he talked that from a soldier standpoint. Always remember, he said, when a soldier knows his family is being taken care of at home, he becomes a better soldier, taking care of himself and looking out for his buddies. As you can see, support for the soldier starts right here at East Bay MUD. Ever since the founding of our country, Americans have put their lives on hold to defend our freedoms and protect our fellow citizens. Today, more than 1 million Americans serve in the military, and 48% of our country's armed forces here and abroad are from the National Guard and Reserve. Excuse me. The percentage has never been this high in our country's history. This is why today, more than ever before, it's so important to provide our support for these young men and women. These soldiers train throughout the year to be mission ready for assignments at home and abroad. At home, they participate in rescue operations and provide disaster relief in flooded areas due to hurricanes or tornadoes. The Guard and Reserve was there. On a yearly basis, they are deployed to our Western United States to help fight forest fires, and recently we saw them in the fight against COVID, and Chief was involved in that. But most importantly, they have been or are engaged in combat operations around the globe in such places as Iraq and other hotspots. Interestingly enough, I had 6 Freedom Award nominees, 5 of which were from the Navy and 1 was from the Marine Corps. And they were all our top ones. 5 of those people from the Navy were mobilized, and I can't say where they are or what they're doing, but they are mobilized right now. So it happens all the time. Balancing the demands of civilian life with the demands of military life can be challenging. And what I'm about to say is probably the most important point of my presentation. Employers who understand this difficult balance and the critical role the Guard and Reserve have in our country's defense and employ our volunteer force, the Department of Defense knows that supporting these soldiers is not easy. And this is why the Department of Defense, in recognition of your support, is awarding the Above and Beyond Award to East Bay Municipal Utility District. So, Chief Music, you want to say a few words?
Yes, I do. Board of Directors, General Manager, I've been a district employee for going on 14 years. And the entirety of that time, the district has had my back for the work that I've had to do for the Navy. And I just want to, just speaking plainly from my heart, you have all been very supportive. I mean, you might not know me directly, but the policies and procedures that you guys developed have enabled my local management team to be able to take care of me directly. So I've been able to go and do the things that I need to do to lead my sailors. And I couldn't do that if you guys didn't have my back the way you guys do. And I just want to express my appreciation to you guys for doing so. Thank you.
Chief. Hello? Chief, thank you for your service to both our country and our community. And I had a question for Mr. Stage when you're done with that part.
Oh.
Go ahead. I think there's going to be a photo.
You're getting a picture.
Thank you.
Mr. Stage, thank you for awarding this to East Bay MUD. Do you know by hand how many employees at East Bay MUD are part of the reserves now, currently?
No, unfortunately. We don't get that information.
Okay.
I
Well-
would suggest you take a look at our annual Veterans Day recognition. And today, if you wanted to stick around for the extra time, we're also going to remember those that aren't with us anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon.
President Liddy, would you like to say a few words?
I would just say it's a great honor to have this recognition. There's no higher calling than the call of service to our country, and sometimes it's easy to take it for granted, but it's something that we never should take for granted. I'm proud of our organization and that we have made sure that we're doing the right thing for our veterans and for our service members, and you know, sounds like there's room for us to even do more, and I hope we can and find ways to do that. So thank you very much for this honor.
And
Thank you.
I
You
just,
certainly deserve it.
yeah, I just also want to add that it really is an honor to receive this award. I do want to just share a brief personal story. Last July, my father received posthumously the Congressional Gold Medal for the Chinese Americans who served in World War II. 1 in 5 Chinese Americans served in the war, 20,000 in total. 40% of those who served were not allowed to be citizens of this country because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. You and all those who currently serve in the military and all of our veterans have made tremendous sacrifices to protect our country and our freedoms. I'm proud of all of our veterans and proud that we as an organization continue to support those who serve in the military. Thank you, Colonel Sage, and thank you, Chief Musick, for your service to our country and for your work at East Bay MUD.
Thank you. And this concludes our ceremony. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, there are no announcements required from closed session. We're on to public comment. I don't have any blue cards for those on, oh, I'm sorry, I do have one. This is for a consent item. So for, in the public comment, if you have a public comment not on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. When prompted, please state your name, affiliation if applicable, and topic. Please refrain from providing personal information during public comment. If we need this information, we'll have you contact staff. The secretary will call each speaker in the order received, and each speaker is allotted 3 minutes. However, I have a discretion to amend this time based on the number of speakers. The secretary will track time and inform each speaker when the allotted time is concluded. Madam Secretary.
I don't see anyone online for public comment.
All right, then.
I have one hand for public comment.
Okay.
Yvette Rivera, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Thank you, Risha.
Your 3 minutes will start now.
This morning I spoke at 2 earlier board meetings. At the first one, I spoke about the HR legislation minute notes from the May 10th meeting and how they didn't accurately reflect what Mr. Spinner and Mr. Kelly Albro said about East Bay MUD. I hope that those minutes are closely looked at and amended. I also spoke at the afternoon meeting or 11 o'clock meeting how I have to attend these meetings while on vacation in Argentina because the new DIO officer, Janella Samber Wallace, says I have until this Thursday, 5/26, to respond to a determination letter. I reminded the board of directors also that I provided them in 2021 a 16-page document from the EEOC that described guidance on how to deal with retaliation and enforcement issues. Today, I provided a 100-plus page document. And I told the board that it wasn't rocket science, that for the sake of employees being currently discriminated against, harassed, and retaliated against, the board of directors, Janella Samber-Wallace, Derry Moten, Chokoli Matthew, and Stephen Curry, should read that document before doing the bidding of Clifford Chan, General Manager, Derek McDonald, General Counsel, and his staff, Lourdes Maria Matthews. I said that it was obviously too late for Saji Pierce, Ariel Bland, and many of us at East Bay Mud to be treated with dignity and respect after filing discrimination and retaliation complaints against this agency, but it might not be too late for others. I ended this morning by saying that I was asking the public, in a public meeting, the board, to ensure that the newly assembled DIO office and its DIO officer would provide me an extension to respond to the determination letter until I return from my vacation. I did want to add that I did listen to Director Coleman's comments this morning about how the HR department was woefully in need of training. Actually, I thought he made a more offensive comment about the HR department. But I really don't understand why Director Coleman doesn't look at the General Counsel's office, because earlier in my career at East Bay Mud, I was in many discussions with General Counsel Lourdes Matthews about employee action, corrective actions. And I know that that office provides guidance to HR and supervisors. And I don't understand why Director Coleman leveled his concern or his resentment against the HR department when he just needs to look to his left at General Counsel's office and look at all the mistakes that come out of that office and see that somebody isn't practicing due diligence. I'm going to end right now by just reading one line from the confidential notification of EEO determination. And I'm waiving my confidentiality rights because I want the public. I've given this to the district as a public document. And I'm going to read this one line, and then I'm going to end. The investigation concluded that my protected activity in 2013 and 2015 was too remote in time to reasonably infer a casual connection between my earlier complaints and my 2021 performance appraisal. Somehow, Ms. Janella Samber-Wallace wasn't given any kind of feedback by our General Counsel's office about the recent Ninth Circuit decision in the Rivera versus East Bay Mud lawsuit. I'm going to end there. I hope that the district does respond to me in a timely manner today about my request for an extension. I look forward to hearing from everybody. I yield.
All right, Yvette, I will say that I will inquire about the circumstances of the deadline for your complaint. See if there's anything there. Any other public comment?
There are no other hands for public comment.
All right. We'll then go on to the consent calendar. I have a speaker card for item number 4, so we'll ask to pull that item.
I'd like to pull item number 1, minutes.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull number 9.
All right, do I have a motion for the rest of the items on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, so items 1, 4, and 9?
And who voted?
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Director Mellon made the motion, seconded by Director Patterson. Let's take that again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, so let's just take them in the order. Item 1.
So
This is approve the regular board meeting minutes.
yeah, in the closing director comments, I had suggested that remembering the 3 individuals that I named as being counted on as being part of the greatest generation. And so I would ask that we recognize the three as being part of the greatest generation, and that we had recently lost them. And Rita, do you have, Lisa, Risha, do you have some language that you would suggest?
Yeah, we actually updated the minutes.
I was looking for it at the.
Director Mellon reported on the passing of 3 Castro Valley military veterans who were part of the greatest generation, also known as the GI generation and the World War II generation: Mickey Ganich, Peter Shantz, and Glenn Barth.
With that modification to the minutes, I would move the minutes.
All right. Moved by Frank, seconded by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposition? Carries unanimously. All right, item 4. This is the award of a contract to the lowest responsive bidder for construction of the Oakland Inner Harbor Pipeline Crossing. And I have a speaker, Stanley Cooper.
And your 3 minutes will start now.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Stanley Cooper. I'm the owner and president of Cooper Construction Engineering. Earlier, I've written the whole board about this opportunity to bid on the pipeline harbor. And today, I'm not asking for you guys to reject the bid. So I've changed my tone on that. What I am asking is that you guys, so I've had the opportunity to not only speak to Mrs. Johnson now and, try to work on having more, what my concerns are is local participation, not just minorities, but, I'm from and raised in Oakland. My company, I'm a General A civil company, able to do pipeline work. And so, and now in working with Ms. Johnson, I would like to have the opportunity to work with Kratos and be part of this opportunity. So before you guys award this, and I've had the opportunity to talk to the project manager, Brett, and in that, I know that he said that there's no rush. So I'm asking you guys not to rush this decision today. Give a local small business owner the opportunity to work with Kratos. And I'm not even asking for, I want to just ask for something that's available. And I've read the specs and everything, and I've read in 0.5%, so I'd like to at least speak to them to see what they may have before you guys award full contract. So I'm saying maybe not today, but give us an opportunity to work together. And I'm also here today to speak on community involvement, EBMUD. Like I've read in my letter to you guys, I pointed out some statistics. And for white women, white men, and then you have minorities. And so I would like to have the opportunity to have a joint task force. And I've been talking to Ms. Johnson about a lot of stuff. Like we've had several opportunities to talk now. And so I would like to see organizations like NAACP, NAMAC, representatives, and be part of a joint task force as far as getting out to the community, getting the word out for contracts, for equality, for everyone to have an opportunity to not just about making money, about making relationships. It's about next generational wealth, and it's about being able to your mentorship programs, things like that. If I could just have a little more time, but I know it's not a lot of speakers. But I just want to say that let's try to work together. EBMUD, you guys, like I said, since a kid, I've been to you guys' plants before, and I think we can now work together and make it fair and equality for not just my company, but for all companies, and whether it's a minority company or a local company or a small company. And that's all I have. And thank you so much. Please consider, I'm not to say, I don't want to kick out from credits. I want to meet them. I want to see if we can figure something out, and then let's come back to it and give us an opportunity to work something out. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Do we have staff comment on this?
Maybe we can start with Beverly. Would you like to share some of the discussions you had with Mr. Cooper?
It's like old home week. Hello, everybody, and it's good seeing everyone. And I do just want to just follow up in terms of my interactions with Mr. Cooper over the last couple of weeks, and I like to say that they have been positive. We have come up with a game plan, I think, in terms of how to move forward, to how to get him hopefully involved in district contracts, looking at not only at our large prime contracts, but also at some of our direct smaller contracts that hopefully he will be able to pursue. The one thing that he did note is that looking at ways of how we can do more, and I told him about our ongoing efforts, especially by Director Coleman, in terms of doing more for local business and how we do have an emphasis on that, and how we're trying to be more proactive and do some more aggressive things around that by working with the Legislative Affairs Office. But it is a real concern, and we really want to do something about it. The other thing is that we have begun looking more in terms of the diversity of our contract awards, seeing how we can do things that may be able to address more in terms of awards to our black firms, in terms of our white women, in terms of our other ethnicity, but to make sure that there is some kind of balance in how those contracts go out and how we hopefully are able to distribute them. And just, he mentioned the district is reestablishing an external advisory committee, of which, as Mr. Cooper referenced, the National Association of Minority Contractors has agreed to be part of. The committee he's with the NAACP, which I know Director Patterson is overall, have agreed to participate in, just so we can get more education out there about how a program is, how it's set up. It still makes people scratch their heads when they see our numbers, as it do each of us when we say white men contracting objectives, but trying to understand the psyche of why we did that and to try to see how we can improve our program going forward. So we're going to look forward to this opportunity to work with Mr. Cooper. Also, advise him about how he goes about bidding on contracts, permitting proposals that he's looking at with the prime on this job, but just in terms of our process in general. So I think we're going to be moving forward in a positive direction, and hopefully he'll come back a much happy camper when he returns next time. I didn't know if there was any specific questions that any of you had.
Go ahead, Andy. Oh, Bill?
Just wanted to thank you. We communicated, and I spoke to you on the matter, and I'm glad to see that you're working in that area. Also, I would remind Mr. Cooper that you, in your department, have channeled more money into the black community from EBMUD than any other agency around here. So I wanted to just give you that continuing support.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Andy.
We did have a brief roundtable discussion, echoing some of the ideas that just came out today. I think it was 9 years ago, and we talked about it quite a lot in our DEI strategic plan. So I do think that some of these ideas have the expressed support of the board. I would like to just call out again what I heard today about proactively facilitating subcontractor participation, because that's a very important entry point for inclusion for small emerging contractors. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Beverly, I had a question. So Mr. Cooper had asked for a delay in this in order to have more time, I guess, to talk with the top winner or bidder. Is that make sense? Is that an approach that?
Say it
is
one
fit-
more time.
Well, my understanding is that he was asking for a delay to give him an opportunity to talk with the top bidder to see if he could do.
But he clarified that he's not asking that now. He's gonna get involved with the
Okay, so
department.
not asking for a delay? I'm
Right.
sorry, Mr. Cooper, you want to clarify?
Hello, Board. Thank you again, and thank you for your consideration. And yes, I am asking for a delay for 2155 for an opportunity so we can, I don't want to say kick things down the road. Like, we're here and now at the crossroads. And I think and the reason why I contacted the project manager and I asked him, Brett, and I said, what is the urgency of this project? Now, politically, I know that if there is one, then the chances are you may not delay it. But he said, it doesn't have to happen right away. So what I'm asking the board is that yes, delay this, so give me some time to be able to talk with Kratos and see how it can be a win situation across the board for EBMUD, for the lowest bidder Kratos, and for Stanley Cooper Construction Engineering, for being local. I meet all the criteria for Mrs. Johnson department, and so that's what I'm asking. And then maybe the next time y'all reconvene, we'll have a happy story. That's what I'm hoping for.
And Mr. Cooper, did you bid on this particular job?
So part of the letter that I was telling you is that I wasn't given all of the information that I needed. So that's part of back to reaching out to the community. Right. And these are why I'm coming up with these ways to better things. So first of all, for the work that Ms. Johnson has done, I'm proud of what she's done. I just know that we can work together and better things, because I always feel that when you're a smaller company going through the struggle versus a company that's already successful, maybe the companies that's successful forgot about the things about the struggle. So when you form a committee, it can't just be what Primes is doing well. It has to be the ones that's struggling. I don't want to be struggling like that, but not doing as good. So I would like to be part of the committee, and yes, I would like to see if I can have time to talk with Kratos.
Okay.
And work something out.
You got that clarified.
Thank you so much.
So Beverly.
Is there any questions for me?
No. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For that clarification.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just the same question.
Like I said, I think we were both on sort of different pages, but in response to Mr. Cooper's request for a delay in terms of the contract award, and Jimmy is here in terms of the impact of the project itself. But what I had advised Mr. Cooper in terms of technically there was not a reason that we could identify for asking you to delay or to reject this particular bid. The items that he wants to work on in terms of talking to the prime and doing that can still take place regardless of what happens at this point. So to me, a thing of sort of moving forward and then to be able to have that opportunity to work with the two of them, at least in terms of him being able to discuss and to talk to the prime is still open to him. But in terms of the time restrictions or anything, I don't know if Jimmy wants to address it.
I just want to say, I think I'm leaning towards what you're saying. I would love to see, obviously, companies like Mr. Cooper's make sure that they have equal footing to be able to do some subcontracting work and to be able to bid for these kinds of contracts. I'm a little concerned about holding out a contract and saying, oh, you have to speak with this subcontractor or that one. With all due respect, Mr. Cooper, I don't know, whether you would fit or not, but, with what they need, but I would certainly encourage Kratos to, in the spirit of this discussion and of, I think, all of ours, collective interests in seeing work go for local and for minority-owned and women-owned companies, that there's efforts to be made that way. But I personally, I'm a little concerned about holding anything up and making it look like we're trying to be biased that way. Bill, I think you had something else you wanted to add. Did you? Or maybe not.
No,
Okay. Is that Andy's hand?
Yeah, just a couple technical things I wanted to get some clarification on. I'm looking at the bid list that lists the 7 bidders by how much they bid, and I see that the bid discount is listed separately for bidders number 1 and bidder number 5, which wasn't competitive. I just wanted to double check. Bidder number 5 is not listed as distinctly as an SBE as Kratos is. I just wanted to know, was that an omission, or did they receive the bid discount for a different reason?
They, because they were automatically the low bidder, the bid discount did not apply.
We're not really relying on the bid discount because they would have won either way. I just wanted to, I'm just a little confused about the way it's listed on the line item number 5. Should there have been that SBE/DVBE next to their name?
That is, yeah.
Okay, that clarifies things. And so 2 more thoughts just to, I think for items going forward. I do agree with President Linney that we would, there are circumstances where we would take an action other than approve the contract for the lowest responsive bidder. But those are really circumstances that would relate to the qualifications of the bidder themselves or the accuracy of the bid. Those kinds of circumstances where we don't really have that right here in front of us. But it is, there are some things that I observe in this that I think are useful for staff to review for future bidding and contract opportunities. One of those is the depth of the bid discount. We have periodically increased the bid discount when it, as we get more comfortable with the program. It didn't make a difference in this case, but it did look awfully close between an SBE prevailing and a non-SBE prevailing. So maybe we would want to take a little bit of a look at that. A second, probably much more complicated area is that if doing the most we can to facilitate emerging diverse subcontractors in our contract equity program, and is there a way that we can quantitatively have current prospective bidders evaluated on their commitments or evaluated on their past performance contracting for the district or other entities in that inclusion? Can we come up with a quantitative approach that would also provide either the same bid discount or a separate additive bid discount? Would that be beneficial to getting the results we want? Because we have been relying on good intentions and trying to facilitate networking, trying to facilitate mentorship. Maybe those efforts were disrupted in the pandemic. Maybe those efforts, really there's more that we could do with those efforts. Maybe we've exhausted those efforts. So, if we've exhausted those efforts, or if we think that having a separate measurement that could take effect through some kind of bid discount could be possible, I'd like to refer that for future consideration. Not for discussion as part of this project, because I think our materials are pretty clear for us.
Thanks, Director Katz. And the points that you raised are things that we are looking at in terms of a protege type setup in terms of, say, some of the larger firms so that they can easily bring on some more diverse firms on their teams. We're looking at ways that a prime contractor who is bidding on a project can get credit for having a certain distribution of firms, diverse small firms down below, similar to what they have with the say, City of of Oakland. And so we are looking at that and trying to, another issue came up that Mr. Cooper raised was in terms of a sort of a pre-qualification process, or how we have firms that are out there who can provide a certain level of service. We do try to deal with those in our Small Business First program in terms of things that are direct award with the district, but we said that we would look at some ideas that he had about how we can do it, because on this project, what is unique about it again is that there is a big pre-qualified bid item, the largest, if you're looking at the bid summary. Their major sub is pre-qualified, and basically the district indicated there were 2 bidders who met our qualifications. That had to be, one of the 2 had to be used on this project. So it took out a big chunk of the work for the horizontal directional drilling. So you'll see a $3 million plus line item for that. And so when we start talking about that whole pre-qualification process, that was an area that he mentioned about how we could possibly do something for some type of categories for diverse small firms. And so we will kind of explore that and see how, at least in terms of building up a referral list of firms who do meet the qualifications for our projects. We do encourage, in terms of how we try to educate the firm, is encourage them to attend the pre-bid meeting. Of course, to reach out to our office. In this case, there was an incident where the contact was not made at the time of when Mr. Cooper tried to reach us. But we do have some things in place that we will be beefing up, trying to make sure we do better outreach, that there is better connection so that we can help prepare them for the upcoming bid opportunities. We try to do that with our newsletter, sending out the announcements before they hit the streets, letting them know what those opportunities are, and if they need assistance to reach out to us. And so, because in Mr. Cooper's case, we do have few Class A contractors that are diverse in our database, and so we do welcome the opportunity to see what we can do to hopefully make sure that he has ample opportunity to bid and hopefully win contracts with us. But again, everything on the construction side is low bid in terms of being the lowest responsible bidder. So in order to participate, you got to come in and get into the game. And so that's what we're encouraging him to do as we go forward.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, board?
I see one hand for public comment. I'll
Okay.
take it after
Sure.
you take your board comment.
I think we're due with board comments.
Okay. Bindu Griffin, you should be able to unmute your mic. Are you commenting on this item, the Kratos item?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was on my phone. I had to find the link. Thank you.
Okay. Your 3 minutes will start now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Thank you, Stanley, for showing up. And thank you to Beverly Johnson for the work that you are doing. And I just wanted to say, Beverly has been reaching out, especially now that NAMAC, I'm a NAMAC board member, by the way, sorry. Now that NAMAC has reformatted or reformed, she has reached out to us to talk to us about how EBMUD can better work with the minority, the small, and the women-owned firms. So I do want to say kudos to you, Beverly, for that. And we will be paying more attention as the projects come up to bid, and as the notices are sent out to us, we'll make sure to work with you all to get those notices out to the bidders. We know sometimes it's hard, but we are also trying to do some technical assistance, and I'm not sure if that's something that EBMUD has. And I would like to encourage the board members, if that's something you can look into, technical assistance for the small contractors, local and minority and women-owned firms, so that they will receive some technical assistance to be bid ready and to know how to bid and how to put their bids together. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. We look forward to working with you all and hopefully seeing more participation on the contracts, especially these contracts that are right in our backyard and that impact our small and minority and women-owned firms. So thank you. I'm in the car. Sorry for the background noise. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. You said you were with NAMAC. What's the name of
Yeah.
the?
National Association of Minority Contractors. I'm
Okay.
one of the new board members.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
I would move the item.
I have Frank on cue
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry.
I know everything's turned upside down with the COVID, but we used to annually have a contractor meeting and contractor training. Is that anticipated to come back soon? Because I think that would address some of what the gentleman was talking about, as well as the person that was on the phone.
Yeah.
Because, you know, unless you know what's going on, how can you play in the game, right? So I would hope that that would be on the schedule to be rekindled.
Yeah, Beverly, maybe you can share what we've done during COVID and what your plan is as we kind of come out of COVID, sort of.
We do have, there's two things. We have our regular construction business forum, and then we have our construction roundtable where we do bring interested parties up. It's not typically annually, but I think it's time now that we're going back live that we get our contractors back together. The circumstances, a lot is happening with the supply chain and impacts that they're having with doing business with us. That would be good to get our key contractors in, and we'll put something together in the next couple months for that.
Be a good jump start.
Okay.
I'll second Bill's motion.
I'm sorry? See it. All right, so I think we have this item. Or do you have another comment, Mr. Cooper? You've sparked an interesting discussion, you can see.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Once again, everyone's time on this matter, I really appreciate you. And I appreciate Kratos as well. And I'm looking forward to meeting them, if they have a representative here. So I do appreciate everything. Ms. Johnson, of course. So one of the matters that she just brought up is that there's a line item that has a company from the Midwest, by the way, that they're already in this process, over $3 million, right? And so one of the things I will be suggesting and going forward, working with Ms. Johnson, Ms. Bindu Griffiths, NAMAC, NAACP, working with everyone in the community, working with you, board of directors, is that I asked you to look at San Francisco County and City. They have set-aside programs. And just for example, let's say set aside as a topic, right? If you're, so I spoke about the company from the Midwest that has $3 million. They're in no matter what prime goes. They're already in. So for the set aside, that would allow local companies, and there's not a lot of General A's, and there's not a lot of black General A's out here, but that'll allow us to be part of a pool, a very small pool. And let's say, you know, we decide to bid, and so whoever the winning prime is, that person already is covering like bonding and stuff like that. So with the set aside, you have a percentage, or you have a way to already be part of the contract, you know. And as we're part of the contract on the set aside, let's just say we don't bid, no one bids, then don't worry about the set aside. But if a company bids that's part of the pool, then they should, just like the company from the Midwest, we should have an already in way to be part of this contract, and then work with the prime, Kratos, or whoever is the lowest bidder. And that's just one example. But I have a lot of ideals, being a company trying to make its way up from a submarine to a ship fighter, right? And working with Ms. Johnson. So once again, thank you.
Great, thank you. Keep those ideas coming, and please work with Beverly on that. Thank you very much. Bill, you want to make your motion?
I make the motion.
Okay. And Frank seconded it. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 9.
Thank you very much. And again, I apologize. Clifford called yesterday, and this was not on my mind. I read it over the weekend. I had a question. It's a huge increase in what we need to order is 224% more of the fittings and for the PVC pipe materials originally than estimated. What is the driving reason that the number is so high?
Yeah, so, we do projects and design that go to construction, and what we identified is, some better coordination between the purchasing department and the engineering department. When we pick the projects that need to get done, they had more projects that involve PVC projects, and that coordination with the purchasing department didn't happen, so we fell short on stock within the warehouse for those particular clamps. So there's been discussion with the purchasing department and the engineering department to just do some better coordination. Sophia, would you like to add to that?
Yes, first of all, you got everything, all the notes, right. And in addition, there have been some global supply chain issues that have led to increases in the price of brass. But, basically what Clifford said, so thank you.
So, I mean, it's a lot of factors outside our control, I understand that, but it jumped out at me. I'll move the item.
All right, moved by Director Coleman, second by Director Patterson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Then.
President Lenny, I would just like to clarify, Director Mellon is out of the room, and so he did not vote on.
That's
right. He didn't vote on item 4, and he did not vote on item 9.
All right.
And just
Thank you
want
for
that for
that.
the record.
Important to note. Determination and discussion. General Manager Chan.
So first, I just want to note that I will be pulling item 16, but we'll just move on to item 14 first. We have a resolution before you to conduct virtual meetings, and we have Dave Briggs here to share with you the information that will support the findings to support that resolution.
Okay, thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President Lenny, and I will queue up the presentation with Risha's help, perhaps. Okay. Thank you. All right, do I have control at this point? I do. Okay. So slide 2 shows our cases in our local counties. They've been steadily increasing for 2 months, as the board is undoubtedly aware. I would also mention that the COVID concentrations in wastewater around the Bay Area are also very high. They're actually comparable to the Omicron level, that they're that high. But on the flip side of that, hospitalization rates remain very low. So no one's panicking, but everybody's watching. The lower graphic shows the district positives. Unfortunately, that number is 547 right before the meeting started. We're getting about 2 or 3 a day, and we have been getting 2 or 3 a day throughout the month of May. So we're at 70 now. Probably be in the 90 to 100 level before the month is out. So not quite as bad as January, but certainly a big month. Based on looking at the leading indicators like the wastewater, which is not calming down yet, I would say we're still at least a week or 2 away from the peak. At least.
So 2 weeks ago, I thought you said you thought we were at a plateau with the wastewater.
I thought we were.
No.
I know. If I've been a very bad predictor of this pandemic, I'm going to just tell you that.
Better than the weatherman, maybe.
All right, we won't do any lashes with lead milk.
Oh, I think, yeah. Yeah. And, okay, let's move on. Okay, so there haven't been any changes on the protocol side, regulation side, guidance side. With this increased caseload that we've seen in the last several weeks or so, we have had several work sites at the district where we have had most likely employee-to-employee transmission. Those have been 2 construction sites in essence and a maintenance shop. No employee transmission in the office, most likely due to the face coverings, which are working. Keep in mind, we don't require face coverings outside, only inside. And we're not really the occupancy levels in our buildings are still relatively low, such as the AB, where we typically average 30% occupancy on a typical day. No operational impacts. No one's in the hospital with COVID. We still have our on-site testing. We'll keep that for a few more weeks, and otherwise all the protocols are the same. So as we've always said, we're trying to stay on top of things. We'll change when we hear better guidance. We've mentioned that obviously now is not the right time, but when the pandemic does improve, we'll consider removing face coverings indoors. On the flip side of that, I've been communicating with employees earlier this week that if things don't improve, if they get significantly worse, and we do start to see employee-to-employee transmissions inside the building, we may want to pause the return to work. But we're not there yet, but we're keeping a very close eye on it. And we will eventually transition to an off-site testing program. Okay, so this is the last slide. Clifford, do you just want me to highlight this, or do you want to take over?
Maybe I'll just very
Okay.
quickly. So really, in order for us to remain flexible in case conditions worsen before the next board meeting, we do have a resolution before you for your consideration to hold the board meetings via teleconference under Government Code Section 54953E.
I have a question or a comment.
Just say motion by Director McIntosh, second by Director Patterson. Go ahead. Discussion.
So I've just in talking with other jurisdictions and other, they have continued doing virtual meetings, and they actually have all said, we're not sure we're ever going to go back. I don't know how they can say that, but also sort of the question about that they've also had some, because they are meeting virtually, I'm having a little trouble parsing what they say or understanding how it would, affect us, but is that there are, and Marlene, you might be the best person to answer this, but, how imminent are, sort of changes to the Brown Act, or are there changes to the Brown Act that are being considered that would sort of embed this, sort of flexibility if COVID is with us basically forever, to have, hybrid meetings or to do other things? Do you have I'm in favor of doing this resolution, but this still seems like a sort of a stopgap, so just to understand.
I can give you the long-winded. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a long version.
Is it as good as Dave's wastewater prediction?
Dave and I work closely together on these things. There have been a number of bills, and they're still before the legislature in various stages. The prognosis right now isn't looking great. There's a real tension between the public access, transparency, versus just making it more convenient and being able to do this remote meeting. We'll know a lot more in a couple of months, but right now I think this is the best we're going to see, and I think as long as that emergency declaration is in place by the governor, the flexibility for the local agency stays in place.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And just to be clear, by passing a resolution, regardless if the board chooses to in June to be here in person or not, this meeting will not be open to the public for public participation. They can still participate virtually, but they can't come in the building and participate.
Right.
All right. Any other discussion? Andy?
I support managing our meeting in a way that staff find is safe for the district and its employees. In terms of the kind of our current review of the law and this kind of on-off in terms of all or nothing, I do think we could look at other jurisdictions and pay attention to the law. We might get clarification by the legislature, given that this does seem to be an area where different jurisdictions are interpreting it differently. I'm aware in my home city there is a hybrid meeting where under the findings that we're being asked to approve, they're convening a hybrid meeting with a physical location, but having a hybrid attendance of members of their council and the staff and the public. So it may be more flexible than we initially thought, but I do support passing this resolution while we continue to study.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously, including Frank this time.
Thank you. So next, Marlene Dumaine is bringing back to you for your consideration a position on AB 2639. This bill was discussed at the last board meeting.
Good afternoon.
Good
again.
afternoon.
Nice to see you in person.
Yes.
Yes, this is AB 2639. We discussed this at the last board meeting, and the board direction was to continue to try to work with the author to secure some amendments. And so we have reached out to staff. We did a letter of concern that outlined the amendments. We've had several staff conversations. I believe there's been some board outreach that I will leave to those members to update. The short story is there's been no progress, no inclination to accept the amendments, and no substantive discussion. The bill is continuing to move. Our staff recommendation is staying as opposed unless amended. And just as a reminder, the reason for that is because of the consequence to our water rights, the due process protections, to be able to go talk about our specific circumstance. This bill would jeopardize that. And so that is the reason for the position recommendation.
And I did reach out to Assemblyman Quirk on his cell phone. Have not heard back. I sort of did a 20-second spiel saying we enjoy working with him and have been supportive of his bills, but this does an impact for us on our water rights. I'd like to be able to talk to you about it.
Was that it in terms of board member communication? Because we have this rule that, John, I think you were the proposer of, that if we have conversations with members of the legislature or their staff, we're supposed to report it. So that's it?
Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
If I can, sorry, I have to keep taking this thing off and on. We have a good relationship with Bill Quirk. He's a good guy, and his legislation is usually spot on. This is not, and for whatever reason, he is set in his ways, it appears. I think if we do as it's described, oppose unless amended, it gives us a chance, if an amendment is made, to come back and be supportive of the bill. And I also think it sends a message to Bill to say, you know, a lot of the water agencies, including you, who you represent part of our area, this is a real concern. I mean, do we like going against a member of the legislature who's been one of our advocates? No. But I think this is the right way to say it with the message delivered to his office. If we go it that way, we would love to be able to support it, but let's see where it goes in the process and see what gets, how it may change the legislation. That's my 2 cents. It's a motion.
Second.
All right. A motion to take the staff recommended position by Director Coleman, seconded by Director McIntosh. Any further discussion? Andy.
Yeah, I think we followed the appropriate protocol for communicating with the author. We've gone that extra length, from just staff to staff, to reaching out with an elected board member to the member's office, and I trust that we have done our best and everything that we can to express reasonable concerns and why doing this bill in this way would be detrimental to the district's water rights. I think one of the reasons why the board wanted to do our best to work with the author is not just our relationship with the author, but also our alignment with the environmental community on many of the themes that this bill is addressing. And I think we will need to think of the ways to still communicate with the environmental community about how they're approaching the plan and the legislature's involvement in the plan. And I would like some comment on that right now about just what some top line thoughts might be, but I expect that this would be an evolving conversation, because I don't think that the board would be sending a message at all that we don't want the Bay Delta plan to still move forward in a reasonably expeditious way, but we also want it to be above board. We want it to be one where there is transparency of information, and that's good for science, and that's good for the environment. And I hope that we can communicate that in a clear way to the environmental community, because they have really, for reasons that I think are a part of the story, rallied around this bill. And so I think we need to find a way of just communicating respectfully that perspective. The floor analysis has already been published, so there's no way that we would be improperly listed, as, oppose, without the parentheses unless amended, so that's already happened. And so the next time we would be listed would be in a deliberative committee setting. I feel like we it's in the best interest of the district to support the staff recommendation, but I think with some of those careful messages to key constituencies.
Go ahead, Marguerite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm likewise, thank you, Marlene, for your diligence and attempts to persuade the author's office. I'm, as equally, sort of chime in on Andy's concern about whether our argument is similarly falling on deaf ears with our usual, well, not on this issue, allies in the environmental community, and just really encourage that we continue to, reach out to, because I suspect that if East Bay MUD and NRDC both said, then there might be some, movement, despite it seem, as you said a couple weeks ago, that this looks like it's really coming from Quirk himself, not from a sponsor, despite the fact that everybody, I think there's something else going on, despite the fact that all the other groups are sort of, on board. So I do think that, what you write in the letter is really important, so that folks understand where we are and where we'd like to be and what's standing in the way of getting there. I mean, as much as it is actually also a statement to the state board about losing sight of, the process and science in the process. Yeah.
All right, we have an active motion. We ready to take a vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. Thank you for your work on that, Marlene.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Well, I'll be back in June with a whole bunch. Do you have any questions? Budget? You want to talk about budget for a second?
That's what we did all morning. You missed that.
Okay.
No, she meant the governor's
I know
budget and
that.
the revised.
$98 billion.
This is the exciting month.
We don't know what they're doing with it.
That's right. It's the biggest surplus in history,
It's
right?
probably the last time there will be the biggest surplus in history for a while, I'm guessing.
Yeah, in the next board meeting, we'll be right at that deadline, so I'll have some actual information instead of speculation for you at that point.
Right.
It'd be nice if we could offer individual suggestions where some of that money could go.
Thank you.
Only if it's one-time spending.
Thank you, Marlene. Just moving on to the general manager report, we have one item related to the emergency declaration. So on March 28th, a contractor performing work on a district construction project notified us of a sinkhole near the intersection of Kennedy and Denison Streets in Oakland. On March 30th, a district emergency was declared, and on April 12th, the board ratified the emergency declaration. Today, we have Eileen White, our Director of Wastewater, here to share with you the repairs that we made to the sinkhole and additional inspections that were conducted as part of the emergency and the resulting ongoing work. Eileen?
Great. Thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President Linney and members of the board. Today, as Clifford mentioned, I'm going to provide you an update on the emergency repairs on the South Interceptor. There we go. Great. So in today's presentation, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the incident. Then I'm going to describe the excellent response to the emergency by the wastewater team. And then I'm going to conclude with next steps. So a map of the district's wastewater system is shown on the left. The interceptors, which are the large diameter pipelines, are shown as green lines. As Clifford mentioned, on March 28th, a contractor informed us of a sinkhole at Kennedy and Denison Streets in Oakland. Wastewater staff immediately responded to the site and reported that a portion of the south interceptor had collapsed and a sinkhole had developed that was about 9 feet deep from grade to the top of the collapsed interceptor. And for background, the south interceptor is 66 inches in diameter in this area and is within 5 feet of the traffic lane on Denison Street. The work on the collapsed section of the interceptor was scheduled to occur this summer, and thanks to the board, the contract was awarded last year. Unfortunately, it failed before the work could proceed. Here's an aerial image of the area. The yellow line shows the 66-inch diameter interceptor, which conveys wastewater northward parallel to the highway. The intersection of Kennedy and Denison Street is shown in the blue rectangle. This is right after the 23rd Avenue Alameda off-ramp from Interstate 880 and about a quarter mile before the Fruitville Avenue exit.
This is my bike route.
Here's a cross-sectional diagram of the intersection of Kennedy and Denison Street looking east, and at the intersection there are 2 manholes. In this diagram, the wastewater is flowing from right to left. The interceptor and manholes are colored green, while the storm drain is colored blue. The storm drain runs perpendicular to the interceptor, and the interceptor bends down and then back up to avoid the storm drain. The damage area on top of the interceptor is shown in orange. The hole was 5 feet long and about 6 feet wide, indicating severe deterioration on the concrete at this location. And the sinkhole was located adjacent to manhole S31. I guess the good news is this occurred during the summertime. It wasn't raining, so there was no violations. We didn't discharge any sewage, and so we don't have to meet with the regional board about it. After excavation and shoring, the contractor was able to expose the broken section of pipe, as you can see in the photo. We then cut off the pipe around the hole to allow the new pipe to go into place, as I'll show on the next slide. Here's the half-inch rolled steel pipe that was lifted into the air and then assembled onto the interceptor. And there are safety controls and lane closures coordinated with the City of Oakland throughout. This slide shows the workers placing forms and assembling rebar for the concrete cap. We poured concrete on top of the pipe and allowed it to cure. Next, we backfilled, and then we removed the shoring. And then lastly, we paved over the site and made sure we returned it to its normal condition. So in summary, here's a schematic of the repairs. We repaired the crown, we poured a concrete cap, we backfilled, and then paved. This slide summarizes the cost under the emergency declaration. In total, to date, we've spent over $2.5 million. This amount includes district labor plus contracts with 3 external companies, J&B, V&A, and CDM. These companies provided a range of activities, including the emergency repairs, inspections, and engineering support. But we're not over yet. What we're going to do is, in response to the recent sinkholes, our team is rapidly mobilized to inspect interceptor pipe segments and manholes across the wastewater system. Inspections, I should note, are very challenging depending on a number of factors, such as where the manhole is located, whether permits are needed, and whether the inspection is performed with a camera or a person inside the manhole. So far, we've conducted 35 inspections. The map in the center, which is difficult to read, but just gives you perspective of what we're doing, shows the results of the inspections with condition ratings of interceptor pipe segments and manholes. The information on the map is small, but the key takeaway is that much of the interceptor is old. It was built in the 1940s before the plant was going to operate in 1951 and in need of rehabilitation. We have been systematically repairing the interceptors every year, but what we have seen in the last several years is increased corrosion and deterioration, and it's as a result partially of the great job our customers have done reducing their water use. With the reduced water use, we have lower flow in the pipe, and it's more concentrated. It has more time to sit in the pipe, more time for biological growth and hydrogen sulfide, and we're seeing more corrosion. And we're hearing that from our other industry partners. So what we're doing now is We're developing a plan for prioritizing the worst segments of pipe with the goal of repairing those before summer's over so that we won't have any collapses during next year, hopefully when we have a wet winter. This just shows you some of the inspection results we've had to date. As you can see, there are many signs of the aging infrastructure, including exposed aggregate, corrosion, discoloration, peeling, and exposed rebar. We've also observed that manholes with turbulence due to how the water enters the manholes tend to be in the worst condition. Each manhole and interceptor pipe segment is unique, so the implementation plan for rehabilitation is also unique. So I kind of just want to go over the timeline in summary. So on March 28th, the district was alerted about a sinkhole at the intersection of Kennedy and Denison. The extent of the damage was further evaluated throughout the night with a GoPro video and with closed-circuit TV to confirm the need for emergency declaration. On March 30th, our general manager made an emergency declaration, and on April 12th, the board voted to approve the emergency. In April, staff did a great job completing the repairs to the collapsed interceptor and sinkhole, and we accelerated interceptor assessments. We already had in our plan to begin an updated master plan for identifying which segments of interceptor needed to be repaired in the next 10 years, but we've accelerated that with our recent emergencies. So in closing, I'd just like to acknowledge the great work of our team, their dedication and hard work. I want to thank everyone who was involved, including our wastewater engineers, our operations and maintenance staff, our construction inspectors, and many others. I'm really proud of the exceptional teamwork that they have done and consistently demonstrated throughout these emergencies, and that they're out there every night now. We got to do it when the flows are low, and they're inspecting the interceptors to identify the worst segments. I also want to thank our general manager, Clifford, and I want to thank our board for all their support throughout this emergency. So the good news, no one's been hurt. There's been no violations. And then finally, I can tell you, having gone and asked the board to ratify emergencies for levee failures when the Jones Tract failed. You remember when we had issues during the Claremont Tunnel outage, the portable pump blew up. When Brione's Aqueduct, there was the slide back in 2016-17, the wettest winter on record, and you guys ratified that emergency, allowed it to get repair. And when turbidity got really high, we could avoid making our customers boil water. So I just want to say thank you for all your support throughout the emergencies. And unlike Dave, who can't guarantee you something, I can guarantee you that after July 8th, I will never ask you to ratify emergency again.
Oh, that was bittersweet.
Like a dagger in the heart. No, you guys have given me incredible support. I've been through so many emergencies, and the good news is over the last 6 months, the wastewater team has really learned how to respond to emergencies, and they have done a fabulous job. It was new to them. I had lots of experience from the water system, beginning with the Jones Tract failure and everything else I experienced with Southern Loop and Claremont Tunnel, but they're well set up to respond to future emergencies. But you won't have to ratify any more that I bring forward after July 8th.
I'll just say that it's ridiculous to rope us in with any kind of credit with the people who did all the work on this. This is amazing work. These are hard projects to do, in part because there's not a plan for it, and you've got to improvise. You go along quite a bit, and I think we recognize that. And I think it's a great presentation to show, of the great work that we can do as a East Bay MUD, but we certainly don't deserve any credit.
We get all the support from you. We have a great team, and we truly appreciate all the support from you and Clifford, so thank you.
Well, your leadership in all of these events going back is, it's true that there's all the people that need to move in place, but being able to put it together and have it happen with all due speed, but all due diligence at the same time is really a credit to you and your work. And we'll have lots of opportunity to say how much we're going to miss you, but we're really going to miss you.
Thank you. It's been really fun. I've really enjoyed working at East Bay MUD, and it was a unique opportunity that came up to work at the state level on water issues. So I might know more about the budget from Arlene when she needs to know in July.
Don't get. I have one question. I don't know if any other board members have a question before me. I just was going to ask, these locations, that there is a weakness. This one, you may have answered it because I wrote it down as a question, then you talked about manhole turbulence. But the question is, are you seeing any kind of pattern of where there's weaker areas than others? Or, I'm not sure that matters. But
yeah, and we are, and it's complex. I mean, we've been talking as a team. Where it comes in at an angle and there's lots of turbulence in some of the areas with the city of Oakland, one of the staff is like, well, tell the city of Oakland to fix their pipes. It's like, it's not that complicated. It's not, it's more complicated than that. We work closely and partner with the city of Oakland, but where we're seeing where there's high velocities and it comes in at an angle and then it sits because of the lower flow and it sits there and there's the biological growth and the corrosion, there's a hydrogen sulfide and the corrosion, we're seeing more. So that's one. We're looking at our maps as far as focusing where we want to do these CCTV inspections at nighttime and these PROGO inspections, because it takes time. I mean, you have to coordinate with the pumping plants. It takes operations, maintenance, engineers, a full team to go out every night and do these inspections. But the goal is to identify any other bad segments, get them fixed before the end of summer, before next winter, so that we don't have any violations. That's the goal. And the goal would be we'd close this emergency out at the end of summer before the rainy season starts. So we want to take advantage of being able to fix pipes.
Okay, and you believe you have the funding or whatever to be able to do these inspections and the repairs by the end of summer?
Yeah. We're gonna take as many as we can get done during the summer. We will do. Fortunately, we haven't found any more sinkholes today. We did find one, but it wasn't related to us, so that was good. So it's a matter of how bad. And the pipe's old, and the great job our customers have done conserving. And there was a report done by the state board. It was just completed a couple years ago, showing about the increased corrosion in sewer systems as a result of the water conservation efforts.
Great.
I did have a question that's related to this, actually, which is wondering, so we set up the interceptor system and all of this in a time when, surrounding your poop with, 5 to 7 gallons of water, it's all going to flow all the time, and the world's changed. It's not going to go back.
Right.
So this situation of, more highly corrosive, longer detention time in the pipes, et cetera, is going to continue and get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there, practices, things we're going to do different that anticipate and understand that problem, whether it's, we do corrosion control in our water distribution system to deal with scaling and lead and some of those issues. I mean, are there, practices that we can put in place? Are there different ways we should be constructing, when we rehab the interceptors? I mean, this idea of changing the velocity of the turbulence of the inflowing water, maybe there's things like shields or things like that can kind of disperse that. But are there, is that also being considered?
Yeah, so excellent question. So we're looking, and in fact, when I did the interceptor damage assessment, I'm dating myself now, back in 1997, we looked at what was the best methods at the time for corrosion control. And so some of the methods we use, we do corrosion control like the water system, but as you know, wastewater is much more corrosive. So we've been doing slip lining of the pipes. We've been doing cast in place cure. We've also looked at chemical dosing. Now, we have not done the chemical dosing like Orange County Sand. They're probably the leader in it, but they spend over $5 million a year on chemicals alone before chemicals have increased significantly now during the pandemic. So when we looked at chemical dosing back many years ago, it was not cost effective. I'm not sure it'll be cost effective today. Most agencies have found it's not. But as we put in more CIPP liners and different slip lining, that is more corrosive, is less corrosive than the pure concrete that you're seeing that was built in the 40s. So that's something we're looking at as part of our master plan for the interceptors, which we're now updating. It's been 10 years. It's usually on a 10-year cycle. But I think what we've learned is with the customers, cutting back their water use during the driest 4-year period, 2012 to 15, the corrosion has accelerated in wastewater systems significantly. That things that maybe weren't cost effective before might look more cost effective, but We're going to pencil out again the chemical dosing. The chemicals, if you heard this morning, I was talking to Sophia, have increased significantly over the last year. So we'll be looking at all the different corrosion options, and we've been employing some of them, but we may need to do more. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great.
That is it for my reports.
All right, then we are on to reports and director comments. Committee reports, the minutes from the May 10th Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committees are included in your packet. The board met this morning in a workshop where the staff discussed updates on the key performance indicators, fiscal years 2022 and 2023, the mid-cycle budget, and the proposed fiscal year 2023 rates, charges, fees, and regulations not subject to Proposition 218. We will now receive reports from the May 11th Los Vaqueros Reservoir JPA and the May 16th DERWA meetings.
Thank you. On the Los Vaqueros meeting, it was pretty quick. We actually adopted a resolution on to approve a letter for a loan on a WIFIA loan, and we went through the budget overview and just board policy and action calendar, and just had some report outs.
Great. Finance Administration?
DERWA.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, DERWA. Mr. Mellon.
It's okay, you do finance administration. DERWA met on, what was it, May 16th, and it was kind of a short meeting, but we had to take care of a bit of business. The contract authority manager, that was going to be his last meeting, and we appointed Jan Lee of DSRSD to be the authority manager on a rotating basis. So it's DERWA's term right now, or DSRSD's turn right now, and then it'll be EBMUD's turn, and I guess it's every other year, right, Mike? Every 3 years. So Jan Lee of DSRSD is going to be the manager. We adopted similarly the Brown Act thing for meeting remotely. And then we got talking about, so what's happening with recycled water. And they confirmed that at least EBMUD ratepayers will be able to go, as they have in the past, to pick up, buckets of recycled water for taking back to their house, which is nice. And then lastly, we are recognizing that maybe we can meet in person. And if we can, we'll meet at the offices of DSRSD on July 25th. However, it may be not. But the good news with that comment is DSRSD has finally recovered from the massive flood that just devastated their offices. So everything is like spiffy, peachy keen, brand new, like they just started up. So, and that's all I have to report.
Great. Bill, you're on for the Finance Administration.
Yes, we met this morning. This item was approved on the consent calendar as recommended by the committee. The monthly investment transactions report were reviewed and approved, and the annual investment policy review. There were 2 items, language correction, making more clear the policy. Both those items were before you on the consent calendar, both approved.
All right. Other items for future consideration, please submit those to the general manager. Any director comments before we close the meeting? Yes. All right then. We have a special little thing for closing the meeting today. Each year, the district honors its employees and retirees who have passed away in the last year. Today, we will close our meeting in memory of those employees and retirees who passed away between May 17th, 2021 and May 15th, 2022. Their names will appear on the screen while we observe a moment of silence. May they all rest in peace. The next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 at 1:15 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.